Hi, please don't scroll. I'm going to attempt to explain how insulin works in just 60 seconds. So don't go anywhere. You see, when you take that heavy carbohydrate meal like banku fufu, it has to be broken down because you can't have bits and pieces of banku and fufu floating in your bloodstream. So the body digests it, breaks it down into the simplest form you can ever get, which is a simple sugar called glucose. So glucose flows in your bloodstream as a result of the breakdown of this heavy carbohydrate meal that you took in. Now, this glucose is what gives us our energy to work, energy to think, energy to even watch this video. You understand? Right. But the thing about glucose is that it has to enter the cell before you can get the energy. It has to enter the cell before it can be stored. Sometimes the glucose is too much in the blood, so it has to be stored so that later on, when you need the energy, you can get it. So that's the thing. That's the thing. Now, this is where you'll be able to understand how insulin works. Your cells have doors called glucose channels. These are the entry points, the entryways for which glucose can enter the cell. So what happens is that insulin opens these doors called glucose channels so that glucose can leave the blood and enter the cell. Once the glucose leaves the blood, enters the cell, the glucose can now be converted into energy so that you can watch this video, so that I can make this video for you to watch. You get it? So that's what happens. And sometimes if it is too much, then that glucose can be stored. The problem is in diabetes, you have issues with insulin. The moment you start having issues with insulin, the channels, these glucose channels, the doorways that allow glucose to enter the cell, they do not open because now insulin isn't working. Insulin is that key that opens these channels. Once insulin isn't working, these glucose channels are not going to open. Glucose is not going to enter the cell. You will not get your energy. The glucose cannot be stored. The glucose just accumulates within your bloodstream, and that's how you have high blood sugars. That is what we call diabetes. So I've attempted to explain in 60 seconds, but I failed. I hope to do better next time.